Chapter 32 The Allegory of the Golden Forest Fairy. Once upon a time, I felt that the Golden Maiden was hiding in the Yogini, but now I felt so alone and empty. I knew she cared, but why couldn't I let go? It was her time to grow, but there was something about our connection that left me lost while I wandered through the unknown. I wondered if I'd be alone forever. Am I even worthy of true love? Again, I was lost in the kingdom of the mind, but still, I wondered how else I could have shown up. Of course, I felt I had to part ways, but now I let her get away. The silence spoke so loud, and I wondered why the aching heart always stayed the same. Oh, I had to get away, and so I wandered out into the woods. I just needed to get away into nature and sit beside the loving trees where my life wouldn't be so misunderstood.
"Oh, boo-hoo,"
said a whimsical voice. "What?"
"Will you suck it up?"
she said. "Who's around here?"
"Up here, you ding-dong. Now come on, will you sing me a song?"
she said. There she was, a mystical yet tiny golden fairy. All the while, she hovered in the leaves above me. "Who the heck are you?"
"Brigid of Kildare, the Celtic goddess. I'm the mother goddess, the great shining one associated with wisdom, poetry, healing, protection, foraging, and animals. But then again, I do it all, so it's easy for my talents to overlap. Now you seem like a sad schmuck. You ready to change your luck?"
said the fairy named Brigid of Kildare. "Oh, is that who I am? I wasn't even sure if I was still a man. Why, I'd like to change my luck, but I'm a man without a plan."
"All right, here's the plan. You're going to count to 3, then tap your left knee. After that, go hug a tree, and then jump in the magic pond and take a pee,"
said the fairy. "Really?"
"Fine. Or don't listen to the magical fairy,"
she said. "Okay, I'll give it a try." And so I did it. I counted to 3, tapped the left knee, I hugged a tree, then I jumped in the muddy pond and waited until I had to take a pee. Now what?
"Oh, you really are a schmuck. You ought to learn to question things more. But at least you're not a bore,"
said the forest fairy. "Well, what was that for?"
"Mostly folklore. But since you listen to strangers and take odd commands, you're probably one of the silly humans that doesn't know how to be a man. You'd make a better otter. You know that?"
she said. "Oh, come on. I've been to hell and back. Everywhere I go, I get so much crap thrown my way, I feel like I'm always being attacked. So will you stop that?"
"Oh, you're in victimhood, eh? Didn't suppose that from such a strong man like you. And if you stay stuck as a victim, you might get lucky, and I'll toss you some of my fairy poo. Haven't you learned the secret? Or maybe this is why you feel so left out. Because communities that don't allow criticism or disagreements, well, they aren't communities, they're cults,"
said the fairy. "I'm not in a cult, and I never said I'm a victim. Plus, I'm trying my best, and everywhere I go to help others, it seems they don't understand how much I'm trying to help, because I'm actually deeply obsessed. I want to make this world better, and I love telling stories that signal the spiritual paths for others. But I felt so much rejection because I lost the union with my truest lover."
"First off, choosing someone else should always be synonymous with choosing yourself. Anything else is just self-abandonment dressed up as love. And here's another great hint. This can even lead us to the essence of an illuminated society. Rejection becomes welcomed when we realize it's the universe's way of saving us from mediocrity,"
said the fairy. "What are you on to?"
"I'm on to you. Now what's with these horns? Take off your costume. You're not scaring anyone anymore,"
said the fairy. I crawled out of the pond and I was bewildered. I'd never seen a fairy before, and I wasn't sure why I was such an obedient listener. Maybe I shouldn't trust her.
"Don't ever trust me. I'll only get you into trouble, unless you like stuff like that. You see, I'm a little bitty trickster, but only because I'm mythical,"
said the fairy. "Yeah, me too, and I'm stuck in a rut. I'll do just about anything to get out, but I'll shut up. I'm done hearing my sappy self fuss."
Did you know that it's more useful to be aware of a single shortcoming in ourselves than to be aware of 1,000 in somebody else? Boy, I think you're a perfect nut. Come on and quit acting. You ain't so stuck. Now take off these horns, you big futz,
said the fairy. She flew on my head and started yanking on my horns, but I couldn't be bothered. I was so busy wondering and thinking about my long-lost lover.
Holy shit! Are these the real deal? Where'd you get horns like this? They ain't from the dollar store, and they ain't stick and peel,
said the fairy. Oh, I got bit by the snake of death. It had venom that was quite poisonous, and so that snake belongs to Lilith.
Lilith? The Queen of Darkness?
Said the golden fairy. Oh, that's just the beginning. I can barely remember if I'm alive or dead. Plus the world might be ending. And now it appears that the only way I'll ever end up married is if I end up wrestling Satan and trap him in a cage.
Oh, this is good crack. Where's your Satan at?
Asked the golden fairy. Satan? I wouldn't have a clue. But say, you ever been in love?
Oh, sure. I think I'm starting to fall in love with you,
said the golden fairy. Nah, I'm taken. Well, actually my heart is breaking. It's a pity what's happened to the world, with all the wars and famine. This place really used to be breathtaking.
Aho! You can say that again, said
the fairy. Hey, so what's your story?
Oh, you know, just another allegory of a wild forest fairy,
she said. Well, lay it on me. The fairy took a seat between my horns as she rested upon the hairs of my head and then cleared her throat.
In the days of the old, when the knights were bold, there lived a fearsome dragon, and the king he was in great distress for the countless spirits flagging. Until one day there came a knight, he was handsome, young, and charming, and he slew the dragon with his sword, with a smile that was so disarming. With a hey and a ho and a hey nanny o, a smile that was so disarming. Said the king, I wish to know your name. But the knight said, do not bother, for the name of a knight of the realm, says he, is the same as any other. The king then said, tonight in my daughter's bed you shall take your leisure, and you'll be rewarded for your deed with a night of exalted pleasure. With a hey and a ho and a hey nanny o, a night of exalted pleasure. One daughter she had raven hair, a maiden young and chaste, and she slept all night in the pale moonlight, naked to the waist. The other daughter was quite fair, the fairest in the town, and she slept all night in the pale moonlight, naked from her small waist down. With a hey and a ho and a hey nanny no, naked from her small waist down. Well, the knight goes off, he spends many hours behind the castle wall. But the ending to my story, dear, is not what it seems at all. For neither bed of neither maid was he repaid for his glory, but he slept all night with the king instead, for this is a fairy story. With a hey and a ho and a hey nanny no, for this is a fairy story,
said the golden fairy. What are you saying?
The night was gay, but hey, he saved the day, and I'm still waiting for my night to come my way. Say, you've got a sword? Because I do know a dragon that should be slain, and I'm certain you'll get a big reward,
she said. Well, I'm looking for Satan, and we have to cage him, not kill him.
Yeah, I think that's the mean old dragon's name. It's Satan,
she said. Is that right? Big devil of a man. Pretty vicious, likes wars, famine, and disease. They say the whole world is falling apart because he's the one that's ruined the peace.
Could be, but we're going to need a dark horse,
said the fairy. A moment later, I pictured a dark horse, a real powerful force, of midnight bluish black, and then I transformed into that horse.
Well, of course you're part horse. So you practice the magical arts, or can you just shapeshift into anything?
Said the fairy. Yep, my mind is pretty diverse. Some call it a curse, but it's not the worst, as long as I don't end up laying in a hearse.
Wait a minute, you're it,
said the fairy. What do you mean, I'm it?
Yes, you're him. You're the knight that discovered the great power within. Oh, my lord, are you the unicorn?
Said the fairy. Well, I'm spoken for, but hope is getting pretty dim. It's all going to end if evil wins.
Then who will protect the light?
Asked the fairy. Well, I'm willing to fight.
That's right. You know, alchemists, mystics, and poets, those pilgrims of direct experience, they have always recognized that the link with the divine is through the transmutation of intense effects in the body and mind,
she said. You nailed it on the head. The world threw me to the underworld, and then a snake woman named Medusa had her way with me when we did some ritual that started with Taoist alchemy.
Oh, will you look at that? But you're spoken for, eh? What do you think about polygamy?
She said. You'll have to ask my fiancé.
So you're engaged?
She said. Well, not yet.
So what's the holdup?
Asked the fairy. The old king, and that dragon named Satan. Once I cage him, then I can get married. She's a golden maiden, but we've only got 1 day left before the world ends, so I am getting a bit worried.
My goodness, then we ought to hurry,
said the golden forest fairy. But you said I shouldn't trust you.
Well, just don't trust me with the silly stuff. But when it comes to dragons, I'm your girl with the guts.
Paused the fairy.
Wait, are you gay?
Nope, wasn't gay yesterday or today.
Good enough. Now how about I take you down to Satan's cave? Said
the fairy. But what's your allegiance? You got a troop, or are you in on the spiritual scoop?
I am in the service of love. I honor the sacred, and I exist for the collective liberation,
said the fairy. Wow, powerful mission you've got there. I'm in on the same stuff, so I wonder if somewhere along the lineage of fairies and humans we're connected up the fairy tree. But how do you reckon we'll lock up Satan?
Yeah, I don't know. Or can we just slit his throat?
Asked the fairy. Nah, can't do that. The order wasn't to kill, just to lock him up for 1,000 years. Then I think somebody's supposed to let him out.
Let him out? Why in the world would you do that?
Asked the fairy. Don't you read Revelations? I'm just following orders. It's something about a great balance and cosmic order. Eventually, they'll have to let Satan out. Otherwise, the myths and stories get rather boring. Apparently, the writers of the Bible liked when Satan gets loose after 1,000 years because it makes peace and bliss worth discovering.
Well, we ain't going to get rid of the fear forever, but we are going to ride it like a wave. Now what do you say? Said the fairy.
I'm in. But do you predict any problems along the way? Sounds like you've been there before.
Oh boy, have I been to war.
She paused.
Well, actually, I've never been in a real war. But I'd go to war for love. And you know why? Because I'm that hardcore.
Is that right?
The challenge of warriorship is to live fully in the world as it is, and to find within this world, with all its paradoxes, the essence of nowness. If we open our eyes, if we open our minds, if we open our hearts, we will find that this world is a magical place. It is not magical because it tricks us or changes unexpectedly into something else, but it's magical because it can be so vivid, so brilliant. Now that's what I feel,
said the fairy. So what's the secret then?
The secret is in our story and the way we write it. The secret of it all is to write in the gush, the throb, the flood of the moment, to put things down without deliberation, without worry about their style, without writing for a right time or place. I always work that way. I just take the first scrap of paper, the first doorstep, the first desk, and I wrote and wrote and wrote. By writing at the instant, then the very heartbeat of life is caught,
said the fairy. Oh, right on. So you're a poet too?
Yes. How else do you think we're going to cage Satan? We've got to trick him into that cage. Or at least that's what a fairy would do,
she said. True. Very true. So you're an artist.
The artist is the child who survived. But me? I've died many times. How else do you think I became a forest fairy?
She said. You're quite peculiar. You must know this. Am I right?
I live it and love it. But above all, I'm here to assist. Unless you get tricked. Then I usually just fly up high when the enemies are pissed,
said the fairy. So I have absolutely no idea if I can trust you.
Well, what else are you going to do?
She asked. So what is it that a fairy is exactly?
I'm a little devil. This artist is a holy rebel. I'm a real pain in the butt that you're going to have to learn how to trust,
she said. You sound nuts. But hey, I've lost my mind too. So what will you do? I guess I'll trust you. Show me the way, and I'll follow you.
Trust me, because I have all the experience we need. But you should also trust that a fairy never makes any guarantees,
she said. So there's nothing I can trust you for. Well, I guess I've got to let go and give it a try, because there aren't any other options left to explore.
That's it. Whether you can or cannot trust a forest fairy. It's in the letting go that's the moral of this allegory. Think about life. Do you trust the life you're living? Someday, life's going to kill ya. But hey, sounds like every life story is made to be thrilling. That's the point. You can't trust life, because you're going to die. But you can trust in your life, because life gave you those beautiful eyes. You don't get to keep it. It's not your body or your mind. So can you trust it, or can't you trust it? Neither. You just let go, and eventually you slip out of that body and swim with the divine. See, you're fine. You're just here to write an epic story. And that's the point. Creation is a fabulous allegory. Everyone takes life so seriously, and that's why the world is so furious. But let go, my dear, and welcome in the age of Aquarius. Once you let go, then you find trust. But if you cling and grasp, then I'm going to make you look like a silly klutz. Once you remember it's all a bit silly, then I'll make it easy on ya. But if you try to be all tough and extreme, then I'll make sure it gets serious. Stay light and gentle, and I'll be your companion and guide. But if you take me too seriously, then I'm surely the one who will lead you into trouble where your body will die. All you've got to do is relax. Let those shoulders fall back. There's no perfect way to surrender, so take a deep breath, because I know this is a lot to unpack,
said the forest fairy. Well, this sounds a bit scary, but nothing worse than I've been through. So why not? What have we got to lose?
See, that's it. Nothing is permanent, not even a tattoo. And I knew I could count on you. But have you realized what I actually do?
Said the forest fairy. Huh?
Take a peek and think back to what started this new mystery. Why, just a minute ago, you were all sappy, sad, and depressed when you arrived. See? I'm into the good old-fashioned trickery.
What? Oh my goodness, you're right. And now I totally forgot. You helped me get unstuck right where I was caught.
Yes, I'm an excellent little forest fairy. So you must listen to all that may be taught. Trust everything I tell you, except you should never trust anything that must be forgot,
she said. Yep, I'm not following that.
Great. Now lift up your sword and go find that Satan. What a strange meeting that brought us together upon this surreal occasion,
she said. Just remember, we're not out to kill Satan, just cage him.
Right. Well, bring the sword in case, because we're likely going to need it,
she said. The fairy took off, and so I pictured myself as an eagle. There I transformed, and just like that, I held the flaming sword in my claws as we went off in search of the dragon's lair, from which sprouted the very worst evil. But how does that fairy exist in such a state of ease and peace? I wondered. And so I heard her without words. It was like she could speak in silence. Who was this fairy that arrived at just the right moment to give me such perfect guidance?
It's called Kairos, and my heart is at ease, since I know that whatever's meant for me will never miss me, and whatever misses me was never meant for me,
said the golden forest fairy as she flew free. Fascinating. The only other person I could ever hear without words were the poems of the Golden Maiden.
Onward! Let's cage that mean old dragon named Satan,
said the golden forest fairy.